It is not just in the United States of America where students are staging protests demanding for an immediate ceasefire. These are pro-peace students, anti-war students, and more of these anti-war demonstrations are popping up outside of the United States in countries as far away as Australia, Germany, the United Kingdom, as the Israeli onslaught in the Gaza Strip is now in its 7th month. An ongoing standoff between students, police and university administrators has sparked tensions in Paris at the well-renowned Sciences Po University. The protests by students against Israel have entered into their 2nd week in France, with the Sciences Po University becoming the focal point of student agitation, where these students are demanding for an immediate ceasefire. The protests, however, here are much smaller in scale than what has been witnessed so far in American universities. Now, according to reports, the police entered into the Sciences Po University to try and remove dozens of students who were staging a sit-in demonstration demanding for an immediate ceasefire in this onslaught that is taking place in the Gaza Strip.
The provisional director of sciences at the university called the police and they took us out. There were police brigades with cordons. I don't know exactly which brigade it was. They took us out. The police swept away our Palestinian flags and kicked away our messages of peace. Then they took us out, checked our belongings and also checked our identity cards.
The students from several universities have gathered in protest outside of the Pantheon in Paris, some of whom had been evicted from sit-ins and occupations.
The Prime Minister quite rightly pointed out that the freedom of demonstration and freedom of expression is one thing, but blocking schools is quite another. So this morning I called in the police, the 3rd time in 8 days at Sciences Po, at the request of the school management, and that's the only way I can involve the police. So we are firmly reiterating that blockades are not acceptable, and when we are called upon, we will intervene.
In Germany, where there are some pretty stringent laws on demonstrating against the Israeli onslaught in the Gaza Strip, the police broke up an anti-war demonstration at the Humboldt University. They arrested several of these student protesters. Now, the protesters who wore keffirs in solidarity with the Palestinians had staged a sit-in at the entrance of the university's main building in central Berlin. They shouted slogans such as "Free Gaza," "Germany, stop arms shipments to the State of Israel," and "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Now, according to a Berlin police spokesperson, several people, that is these young students who are staging a sit-in protest against the war, will be investigated for using hate speech, assault and resistance against arrest by the authorities, for demanding that the German government should stop sending arms to the State of Israel, which are being used on the Palestinians. The student-led demonstrations have also taken place in Manchester, Newcastle and across the United Kingdom. At the Newcastle University, students set up tents outside the campus buildings, and they had also raised the Palestinian flags in solidarity with the Palestinians who are under the pump in the Gaza Strip. The protests have also erupted in the land down under. There were hundreds, several hundreds of supporters of Israel in Gaza who faced off at the Sydney University. There were demonstrations and counter-demonstrations where there was eye-to-eye shouting slogans and also the waving of flags by students who on the one side were demanding for a ceasefire and for peace to prevail, and there were other protesters who wanted this war essentially to go on.
I don't think that this movement makes Jews unsafe. I, as a Jew, do not feel unsafe marching in rallies or hanging out here. I think that making us feel unsafe is part of Israel's agenda. It's not a reflection of the reality on the ground.
Many of the pro-peace demonstrators set up encampments outside of the Sandstone main hall as they continue to demand that the university should divest from companies that have ties with the State of Israel, much like the students in the United States and France. Now, the pro-peace students also set up encampments at the University of Toronto, the University of British Columbia and the University of Ottawa. With several camps being sprung up at other major Canadian universities, the law enforcement agencies are monitoring the situation as tensions continue to rise. In Mexico, students at the National Autonomous University of Mexico gathered outside the institution's head office, and according to reports, the protesters chanted, "Long live Free Palestine," as they also urged the Mexican government to sever all diplomatic and commercial ties with the State of Israel. There were protests that were held in Cuba as well, where several hundreds of university students demonstrated in Havana in a pro-Palestinian, pro-peace and an anti-war rally. The students criticized the American police for repressing the students and professors at American universities, where many of these students and professors who were staging demonstrations against the American support of the Israeli onslaught of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have been roughed up by the American police. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.